Welcome to a new Inner Growth Lounge episode. Today, I have a guest that I have been waiting to interview. We are talking about women and our financial superpower. Pauline Kirk is a global speaker, Amazon #1 international best-selling author, mentor, senior leader for Tony Robbins, and the founder of Femvestorsglobal, a social enterprise focused on eradicating the dire statistics. And we have a lot. Welcome. Welcome, Pauline.
Thank you, Christiana. Thank you for having me here today.
So I wanted to ask you, what got you here, first of all? What is the reason that you have created the Femvestorsglobal?
So it's a long story, but I'll keep it short for your audience. And a lot of it is in the book that I published as well. It's around that I wasn't very good with money. I went to Iraq in 2002, 2003 with the British Navy. And when I returned, they diagnosed that as what you know today as PTSD. But for me at the time, I was just an emotional spender. I spent money on the credit card, buying things that made me look and feel great. And then, that money was not my money, it's the bank's money. And I got a lot of debt out of it and then racked it up quite quickly. And on the back of that, I wasn't feeling my best self and I struggled with self-worth. And I was in a relationship which also didn't serve me, but I was also guarantor for a business and a property that both went south as well. And I then ended up having to pay off that debt. So this is where a lot of my money story started on my own journey. Now, if I fast forward more recently, is once I paid off all the debt, I then was in a position where I'm like, what do I do with my money? So I spoke to my girlfriends and they were like, well, we don't know. We just keep it in the bank and spend it. And I'm like, that's not an option for me. I'm like, I'm not good with money. I don't want to see it. So from there, I was introduced to a financial advisor and long story short, it didn't work out. And then I had to start over again. And then I was like, well, I trusted this person and now I don't know who to trust. So then I thought, well, you know what? The only person I really trust with my money is me. So then I ended up taking the time out to educate myself. And I spent the last 15 years understanding how investing works. And then I just made a decision in 2021 to leave my corporate life behind because I know so many women are in this space right now where we don't know what to do. And then I just wrote a research paper during COVID that talked about the financial statistics of women and where we're headed in retirement. And then for me, this was like, I can so relate to so many women and why we're in this position. And I decided to make this my full-time mission, was to start talking about women and money and what we need to do to change it, what shifts we need to look at, our belief systems around money, because I've lived through a lot of it myself. And then I thought, well, who else to better support women than me who's lived through my own experiences? And then that's why I thought this would be a good opportunity to then pay it forwards as well. So we also donate 80% of our profits to various communities and charities.
Wow, that's amazing. And we have a lot of limiting beliefs and a lot of guidance growing up, especially girls. Like sometimes you hear, if you want to keep a woman happy, give her your credit card. I hate it. I also had a lot of I still have limiting beliefs about money. My parents were always telling me that I cannot manage my money. But the truth is, I believe that I have done a good job, not the best, but in my mind, it's always playing back. And whenever I'm going to do a move, a financial decision, it always kicks in, that I'm going to mess it up. I'm not good with that because I don't have the knowledge. So what is it exactly? What do you do in the Femvestorsglobal?
So we teach women the right way about how to get started. So we focus on money habits and the beliefs and the stories that we tell ourselves, because it's all coming down to mindful spending. And then from there, once you understand your spending habits, it then becomes a bit easier to then go, right, what is my goals? What is it I actually want my money for? What makes me get out of bed every day, whether it be as an employee of a company, whether it be a business owner? What is it I actually want my money for? And then it's around how we close that gap. I call myself the bridge builder from where we are today to where we want to go, because we have a goal and something to aim for. Now, most people don't have a goal. So if there's no goal, money putting money away for saving and investing becomes hard because we're not focusing on something to aim for. There's no target. So when there's no target, it's just, well, I'm just going to live for the moment. And if we watch the media today, we all think we might not be around for much longer with, global green agendas and, what's happening to the planet and, all these wars happening in different worlds at the moment. Then it's this view now that, well, I might as well not be here, so I might as well just enjoy it and spend it. And there's this whole belief system now, well, I'm not going to know if I'm going to be around long enough, so therefore I might just as well enjoy the moment. And the reality is that medical science today, we may live till 95 or 100. Therefore, there's a good chance we're going to need our money to last that long. And wars are always part of life. If you look for the history books, global change has always been there. Yeah. Wars have always been there. And this is nothing different. It's just that the media is in our face. And getting eyeballs onto information is so much easier when we've got phones at the end of our fingertips.
We don't have the information needed. Like, for example, I had an aha moment around my 40s. I'm 44 now, and I realized that I'm getting closer to 60, And I'm like, what have I done to prepare for that? Because I don't want to be like 60 and 70 and struggle with money, or not have money then, or not being able to relax. So it was such a shock for me that I realized that, and it made me starting to look for what should I be doing with the money that I get now. How am I going to prepare for that? I had no idea before 40, and we're talking about 40 years of life. So it's definitely needed. So another thing that I listen women saying when I ask, what is your goal? They say, I want to save money. But when I ask, why do you want to save the money? They don't, it's what you're saying, they don't have a goal. So why should I save money if I don't know how it's going to help me, right?
Exactly, Christina.
It's more difficult as well to do it. So where do we start from? Let's say that a lady now is watching us and she wants to start from somewhere. What do we do?
The first part is knowing what's going in at your account every month and what's going out. Most of us don't even have that understanding, especially today with mobile phones. It's easy to pay on our phone, or we use Afterpay services because it's so convenient, or our credit cards. We don't really have a hold of our finances in a lot of areas. So the first thing I always say is understand at the moment what's going in and out, and then how much money have you got to play with. So when we understand that basic level of, how much money do I actually really have every month, then I can make a different decision around how much I want to put away. Now, it comes also back to mindful spending, because I hear all the time, I don't have any money, Pauline. And I hear it, it's a classic phrase I hear. And what I ask all my clients to do is, I said, go through your bank statements for the last 3 months and your credit card statements. And I say, we go through a process of highlighting what is the basic human needs that we have. So it's food, shopping, it's insurances, it's transportation, and a roof over our head. They're at the basic core of what we need. And then I said, anything, so put that in, and I get them to highlight it in yellow. And then I said, right, anything outside of that, I want you to put me in pink, because they're all the other things you can negotiate on. And then when they go through and highlight all the pinks, I said, now tell me you don't have money. I said, because what you do is you spend everything in pink and then say, I've got no money left at the end.
True.
So when you flip it and go, right, as soon as payday comes around, I'm going to put a percentage away of my income away every single month for my future. And then I will live on the rest. Because when you think that way, you will live within your means. And I'm not saying go without. If there's things that you love, continue doing those things. But just think how often we do those things. I love my coffee every day. I'm not going to lie. I go out and have my coffee every single day. Am I going to give that up? No. But am I happy to go and give up some other things? Of course I am. But it's a case of having everything in balance. And most of us are thinking, I'll spend all my money first, and then I've got this left. And I'll put that away, and there's not a lot. And therefore a lot of people think, well, actually, I need a lot of money to invest. You actually don't. You can actually open a brokerage account today for free. And you can actually start investing for as little as $10. And most people think they need thousands and thousands of dollars to put away. but we actually don't. But we have to be clear around, first of all, what is it I want my money for? But before that, we have to actually decide how much money do we actually have in the first place? And what am I looking at in terms of mindful spending? Because a lot of us are getting to the weekend and we go, I work so hard for my money, I deserve it. And therefore we're basically negotiating with ourselves and justifying with ourselves around why we need certain things. There's a difference between a need and a want.
Yeah. And also, if you're not mindful, it's very easy to spend a lot of money. I see it when I go out with the children. Oh my God, sometimes it's such a hell because, it's like, I want this and I want this and I want this. And I'm like, no, we cannot get everything, You have to choose what you want for today. Let's go eat somewhere. You want to go to a restaurant, let's go eat. But we're not going to do that as well. But, sometimes it's a lot of things are kicking in for money. Like, for example, oh, my poor child, that they have everything, they want this and I cannot give it to them. And I'm saying no, but on the other hand, I have to teach them. I cannot let them spend like, there is no end, right?
So that's the other challenge.
Yeah.
That's the other challenge we have, Christiana. It's around, as women specifically and as mothers, we want to give everything to our children. And we're now growing up in the society where children aren't used to hearing the word no, because they get it. And they, a lot of us are so busy and businesses and other things. And a lot of time it's just, we want an easy life, right? Let's be honest. And we go, yeah, okay, but I've got a child who's throwing a tantrum and I'm going to give him the phone. I'm going to give him what he wants and it's going to be peaceful and quiet. And then until next time. And with children, it's a constant negotiation. Now, the reality is that I teach a lot of women in my community that chores are life. And some people find that very interesting conversation to start with. But we're teaching our children from a very young age to be employees of companies. You'll do something with your time and in exchange, I will give you some money. So what I do with my own children and my niece and nephew, and I've got stepchildren as well, is that what I do with them is I support them in terms of what skills are you learning? What books are you reading? Tell me about the things that interest you. And I'll reward you in those ways, because then I'm not teaching you to trade time for money. I'm teaching you real skills because the internet is free, obviously outside of having to pay a monthly fee. But for kids, they can have so much access to such a beautiful, amazing information at our fingertips now. I mean, my generation, like yourself, Christiana, the only information we had was at the library and it was years out of date. And that was if the book was in stock, right? Oh, sorry, someone. Yeah. So today we are in a very different environment where we have everything available on the internet and a lot of it is free. YouTube is amazing and we can learn lots of free courses online and we can do all these amazing things now. We can listen to audibles and, don't always have to go to the library and buy books. You can see behind me, I like physical books, but that's for me. I'm very old school. Yeah, and I also know that I don't listen well when it comes to books, because for me, it's just in one ear and out the other. I like to actually write things down and take notes and read things properly and have sticky notes across a lot of my books. And that's the way that I like to work. But going back to, the comment is around what are we teaching our children? Because there is the next generation coming through. And this is where a lot of women are struggling in retirement now when you start looking at statistics, is that we're giving everything as women to our children, maybe aging parents looking after our spouses, if we have one, and then there's nothing left for us. So by the time we get round to retirement, we've given everything to our kids. We don't want our kids to struggle like we did. And suddenly then we give everything away and then we're not left with a lot. And not being funny, I know you got to think heart and head, is my child going to look after me in retirement? And should that be on my child to look after me in retirement? But, we've given everything to my child. And this needs to be a bit of a reality check for a lot of women, is that how much you actually giving to your child.
But now that I hear you speaking, it's like money is very related to our self-image as well, right? Yeah. I mean, if I feel that I have to serve everybody, money will never stick on me. It will always be given, and not only to the children, but you see, like you feel that you have to help everybody, and sometimes you don't deserve that you don't deserve to keep it. Okay, so you start from acknowledging how much comes in, how much comes out, right? So I tried to do this a few times, but what happens, and that's not good. I have like two banks. So sometimes I will spend with this one and sometimes with this one. So I got this application And I was writing all the spends that I did. It got very tiring in the end. And at some point, I realized that, okay, let's be more mindful when I do it at least. Like when I go to buy something, do I really need it? Like before, I was going to go shopping and buy clothes. Not very often. I'm not very focused on shopping, but I would go to. Now I will only go if I need something. I'm not going to go around and, window shopping. I don't enjoy it anymore because I thought, what is the point of doing that? I mean, I'm not even wearing all of them. I'm wearing almost the same things every day. So, yes, when I did it for those months, I realized that I was spending a lot of money on things that didn't matter. They weren't even a pleasure. It was just, this and this and this and this and then. And also, savings and investing. Tell me a little bit about that. What is the difference and why should we do this or that?
It's actually a combination of both. And I'll tell you the reasons why. So what happens in a lot of people is they want to invest in something, whether it be invest in a property, for example, for themselves to live in, invest in a property as in a real estate investment property, or invest in the stock market. They're classic examples, especially for women. Now, the reality is if we start putting all our money into either a property or the markets, the stock markets in this case, if something happens unexpectedly, you haven't got money freely available. And therefore, our emotions take over because you can't sell the garage, right? If you buy the house and it takes time. And when it comes to the stock market, if the stock market is in a specific cycle and you don't understand what you're doing and it's a paper trade in red, our little mind and the little voice comes in and says, we don't know what we're doing. And then we start talking ourselves into certain things. And next thing you know, we're selling in red and we're never going to invest ever again. So it comes down to, I call it the life jacket. We never know what's going to happen, whether our business is not doing so well for whatever reason. We may lose our job. We're in a relationship that doesn't serve us. We need the life jacket regardless of what happens. So what I say to a lot of women is have a bank account in your own name with money in there. And in today's market, I say you want to put in to the point where you've got about 6 months worth of your monthly outgoings. Put there for, call it a rainy day, call it whatever you want to call it. I call it the life jacket. You never know when you need it, but you need to put it in a high interest account so you can earn money on that money, because our banks are businesses. They don't just give you the high interest account. You actually have to go and request one from your bank. Now, why is this so important? If you are lucky, and I say lucky enough to get a 0.5% rate on your bank, it will take you 144 years to double your money.
Okay.
We're not going to be around. I know I talked about medical science before, but we're not going to be around, right?
Not a good plan, yeah.
And this is why a lot of women struggle, is because we're 71% of women are savers. We leave money in the bank because it's safe. We can see it, we can touch it. And yet we don't put it even into a high interest savings account because we don't even know to ask that question. Now, if you were to, depending on where you live, and you can get up to 5% savings rates these days, I could potentially double my money in under 40 years. Now, that is a massive difference because I'm going to be around, I'd like to think, in that time frame versus 144 years. So this is a challenge that we have for the finance industry. They talk a lot in percentage terms, but no one really knows what that really means in dollar terms. So I always say to my clients, you can do both. Put a little bit of money away for your life jacket. And to give you the statistic today, 1 billion with a capital B, 1 billion women today do not have a bank account in their own name.
Oh my God, still.
Yeah, 1 billion is today's statistic. There is only 8 billion people on the planet, right? Half of us are women. So 25% of women today do not own a bank account in their own name. Now, depending on the situation, a lot of us are staying in relationships because we don't have an avenue to get out. Yeah. And therefore, this is why it's so important to have a bank account in your own name with money in it, because whatever happens, you have options.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is why I call it the life jacket.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And also, I was listening to a podcast the other day that we're talking about compound interest investments. Actually, it was very interesting for our children. Like I was saying something like, if you invest in that, then in 40 years or 30 years, whatever, it will give you back a return that is very useful for them. Like, it's reaching 40 years old and having a good amount of money in your bank account only with that. So how much money would somebody have to invest in order to, create a good amount of money for their children, would you say?
It's hard because what's a good amount of money, right? So my
Yeah.
version of a good amount of money is very different to someone
True.
else's. It comes down to the goals, right? What is it?
Yeah.
What's your goal? There's so many women I hear, it's like, I want to own real estate. And real estate, as you know, is getting very expensive, and interest rates are quite high at the moment when you look at what's on offer. And it also depends on where you live. So it comes down to, what is it you actually want to create with your life? A lot of women, they want the security and the safety net of having a property in their own name with no mortgage, with a roof over their head. For a lot of women, that is their safety net. For a lot of children today, they're not interested in owning property. They want to travel. Not saying all of them, but I'm saying a lot of kids today, when you ask them what they want to do, they want to see the world, they want to travel. So, maybe a property is a very different expectation. For me, I'm what I call a rent investor. I rent myself, but then I own properties around the world that I rent out as a real estate investor. So again, it comes down, but I also own those properties where I own my passport. So if the government rules change, I know I'm going to be okay. So for example, I've got 2 passports. So I have a passport for the UK. I also have a passport for Australia, and I buy properties in those countries because I know my passport is going to allow me certain rights as a citizen. Now, the challenge we have, if you look at Brexit, is a classic example. People bought property and government rules change, and then suddenly they can't live in those houses every single day. They can only stay there for a period of time. They have to apply for visas. And we see it in other parts of the world as well. So it's also kind of come down to how much risk that you're willing to accept. And I always say your risk is basically, are you going to sleep at night? That is your level of risk. If it's keeping you awake, it doesn't matter what you invest in. Don't invest in things you don't understand. Yeah. So, for example, a lot of people talk to me about crypto. I've been in crypto since 2017. I went, do you understand it? They went, no. I said, well, okay, I'll teach you how to understand crypto. Now you can make a decision. Now you understand it. Is this something you want to invest in? And it's the same that it applies to everything. What is your risk tolerance? What are your goals? And then build a portfolio based on that scenario and work through the risk. I always sit there and go, right, if I'm going to invest in this, what's the risks associated to this? And am I willing to sleep at night on that, yes or no? So my portfolio is very diverse. I own property, I own precious stones and 1 ounce gold bars, because if the internet goes out and there's no power in the world, I know that I can still barter my way through life. And people laugh at me when I say that, but I'm like, well, that's what I've gone into. 1 ounce physical gold bars and precious stones, because I know I can still negotiate. Now, do I own crypto? Do I own everything in banking system and stock market? Yes, I do. But if there's no power, and who knows, I know that I'm going to be okay. And I have a little bit of money stored at my house. And therefore, on that basis as well, and I don't make that known to people. I do have a safe here in Singapore, so I'm okay. But, but it's also take that into consideration. If suddenly you can't have access to money, how are you going to cope?
Yeah, especially now with the electronic money, it's a bit scary, Like it happened to me one day. I went to the bakery and I didn't have cash on me. I had only my card, and the machines didn't work. So I got all my stuff and I went to the till, and she said, you can only pay with cash. And I was like, what do you mean? It was very scary. And I thought, can you imagine if something happened and everything shut down? We have nothing. So it's truly important to have other ways to negotiate, as you say, in case. So what would you advise women on the matter now?
If you're starting out, the first thing is understanding where you're at. So it's around what's going in, what's going out every month. That's the first start for a lot of women. It's just understanding as a household or in your own situation around your money and where you're at. That's the first part. The second part from there is, like I said, build the life jacket, high interest savings account that you can access your money at any point in time. It's in your own name, and therefore then start building up that pot. because any investment, there's always a risk associated to it. Even buying property, the market can go down, the stock market can go down, crypto goes up and down a lot because it's a 24/7 market. There's lots of different things that go up and down in cycles. That's life. It's winters followed by summer, in darken versus day. So we have to be mindful of the fact that everything is a cycle. So there is nothing that's 100% secure all the time. Even with our banks, our banks are insured up to a certain amount of money, depending on where you live. So, for example, in Australia, I know that my bank is covered up to $250,000 in one account. So if I'm putting more money in there and my bank goes under, that's all I'm insured for. So everything has a level of risk associated to it. Yeah. So it's just knowing.
Yeah, you know what happened in Cyprus a few years ago? Yeah, and our insurance was 100,000 only, and like people had millions, and they took everything, and they left 100,000 only. It was a huge shock, and you have to be aware. Like now, before that, I never thought about things like that. But then I was like, what is the point of putting everything into one bank, and then one day you wake up and it's gone for no reason?
Yeah, okay. Which is why I mentioned it, Christiana. So I was aware. So I did do some research. So again, it's another just something to be mindful of. It's around, if a lot of women, like I said, 71% of women are savers. So if you're going to save money, put it in a high interest savings account as a starting point. And then, what's going to help you sleep at night? There's lots of different things to invest in. Some people, like bonds, for example, because, especially government bonds. And if you've got a good government, I mean, it's questionable these days, but, is my money secure? I've got a client who's Mexican and she's going, oh, yeah, but the government's going to pay this amount of money for bonds. I said, do you trust your Mexican government with your money? She went, no. I said, well, don't invest in it then. Mm-hmm. But in another part of the world, you may be a bit more open to the fact that there's, you can invest in those things. The stock market is a good way. I talk about index funds, and index funds are a great way to get started in the stock market. And basically, you're buying what I call a group of companies. It's not one individual stock. It's not like an Amazon or an Apple. It's like for America, for example, it's called the S&P 500, the top 500 companies in America. And you can invest in those, and then you pay one amount of money, and then you own 500 different companies at one price. And that is a good way to get started, in terms of buying index funds, because you're following an index of the world, and there's lots of different indexes to follow. So, the UK's got the FTSE, Australia's got the ASX. So it depends on where you live. And a lot of people like to start with home, that's a good place to get started, depending on where you live. But it comes back to, do you trust your government in terms of how, like my Mexican client, she's like, I won't buy anything in Mexico. So, so again, it comes back to things you understand. Regulated markets, the Australian market's regulated, Europe's regulated, the UK's regulated, the US is regulated. So there's different countries around there. Now I'm living in Singapore. Yes, it's a regulated market, but there is no fiduciary standards here, which basically means when I am a financial advisor, I'm selling you a product, the only thing I have to tell you, the fees. And then by law, I'm putting into a reasonable product. Now, I don't know about you, but I want more than reasonable with my money. So the other thing I'd say is, if you are looking to go into some sort of dealing with financial advisors, make sure that they are fiduciary standards, because then you know that they're looking after your best interests and not their own pockets.
So how can a woman work with you? It's you have groups, products, like online programs. Tell us a little bit.
Yeah, so there's a few areas. We opened up our environment, so we have a community of women supporting women. We do have men too, so we don't isolate men either, but it's predominantly women supporting women, where they have a safe space to go and ask those questions. I don't know about you, but if you ever dealt with the banking system or the finance industry and you've gone in, they don't make you feel special. And if you generally walk in with a man, they talk to the man, they don't talk to you as a woman. My husband laughs every time, because my husband has no idea. And I'm just sitting there and they're all looking at my husband talking to him. And he's just looking at me going, babe, can you tell me what they're saying? Because I don't understand it. And then I start talking, and then they're like, oh, she actually knows what she's on about. So, so this is always an interesting area. So we wanted to create an environment for women where they could ask any question, and there's no silly questions, because I know how it felt in my own situation. So this is the environment that we created. to your point, not everyone wants to talk quite openly about money. It's 2024, and it's still taboo talking about money. It's where we sign non-disclosures with our corporations around we get bonuses at work. We're not allowed to talk about it with our other colleagues, which makes me laugh in today's market. And also as well, how much are you getting paid versus someone else? We don't talk about it. At homes, how often are you having conversations with your spouse around money? It's the number one reason for divorce outside of infidelity. So if we're not having those conversations, again, it puts pressure on the relationship. Again, comes down to goals. What is it you want? So we created an environment where we could support women around, even their own money stories, their money beliefs, how to get started, or even having a conversation with their spouse. So
it's like a community. It's like a community.
Yeah, so we have a community environment, and some people are very more forthcoming than others, and this is why we opened it up to you can either work with me one-on-one, because people still don't want to talk quite openly around their financial situation. Some people like the idea of being in an environment where we can all share together. Some people like the self-paced environment because they want to go through at their own pace at their own time because it's convenient with their own personal lives. So we've offered literally a suite of products that either allows you to go at your own pace in a group environment or in a one-on-one environment with myself. So that's what we offered, because we didn't want to exclude anyone when they felt a certain way. And some people join our group courses and then go, actually, this is not for me. I'm not that open. And they switch, or they start in the one-on-one space and they go through and they get to a point in time. They go, oh, this is great. Now I feel comfortable talking about it. Let's swap it into a group environment. So there's no one way or the other. It's around what sits comfortably with you.
No, that's amazing. And I mean, there is a way for any woman that she wants to start from, where you have a lot of options. Yeah. Great. So where can they find you?
So on our website, it's always a good place to start. So we're at www.femvestorsglobal.com. So basically, Femvestors basically means female investor. That's basically the abbreviation of our organization. We're also across socials. So Instagram is a great point, or LinkedIn, or our Facebook page. We're posting content out there every single day. As I said, we're a social enterprise. Our mission is to eradicate the dire financial statistics of women entering retirement. And that starts today. A lot of people go, oh, retirement's so far off. I'm like, no, it starts today. The little part that everything that you do today has such a big, profound, impact on your future. So it starts now. And a lot of people are like, oh, retirement's so far away for a lot of us. Yeah, it is. Or some people think it's only just around the corner and they're so far behind, to your point earlier, Christiana. So today's a good day to start. That's what I tell to anyone. Today's a good day to start. So even just, looking at what we do across our socials and going, you know what, I'm actually just going to follow her online. A lot of people do that before they do anything with us. And because there's a trust, there's a trust factor. This is always a challenge around, the finance industry, because they're not trustworthy. They haven't been trustworthy. They haven't been honest and transparent. And, we're out there to shatter those myths around, the transparency of the industry, and making people's eyes open up to the fact that how much am I really paying for my financial advisor? When they say 1%, what does 1% really mean? And we start talking about that a lot more. So I talk about quite openly around 1%. You're actually giving away nearly 40% of your retirement on a 1% fee every single year. If you have a financial advisor and a 1% fee for 30, 40 years, you're potentially giving away 40% and above of your retirement money, hardcore cash to your future that you're handing over to your financial advisor, because you don't understand what 1% really means.
See, this is what you were saying before about the percentages, right? And the numbers.
Exactly. Same thing about the banking system. I didn't realize 0.5% takes me 144 years to double my money versus, something that's 3, 4, 5% that I can double my money in less than 20 years or 30 years. Yeah. It's such a big difference. Yet no one tells us that, because we're not educated in this area. And for a lot of women, it's the Disney effect. This is what I call it. We have grown up with, look at the toys that we played with as kids. Look at the books we read, the movies we watched. They were all around the fact that someone was going to come and rescue us. Yeah. And therefore, we played this certain role in the family home. And therefore, then no one said, hey, go out and be independent, girlfriend, and go and look after yourself. And this is why a lot of women are like, Pauline, I'm not educated in this area. But no one is. Yeah. No one's educated in this area.
That's why you created this amazing hashtag. I love your hashtag.
Hashtag, I've got a few hashtags. So hashtag financially fabulous is one of them that we use, because I want every woman to be financially fabulous. You get to decide what that is. You know, some people don't be labeled millionaire, billionaire status because it sounds a certain way. So I say a hashtag financially fabulous. You decide what that means to you. The other hashtag, I know the one you're referring to, Christiana, is hashtag a man is not a plan. Hashtag.
I like that.
And
Because,
most of us think he is.
It goes so much deeper. I mean, it's not, it goes very much deep in everything. The prototypes we got from our ancestors, and, you know, a man is not a plan. It's like giving you the authority of stepping up in your life. You don't need to be, I mean, if you are, also you will cooperate with the man. You don't need the man to be saved, which is something that, yes, we got very well from movies and everything growing up. Like my girls now, we never read those classic the classic stories, and if we do, we laugh at them a little bit. Like, you know, the Sleeping Beauty. I was reading it, and then I said, can you imagine, like, when a man came, all the kingdom woke up. Like one man woke the whole kingdom up. So yeah, it's amazing how affected we are from all this. So thank you very, very much. It's been very, very insightful and very interesting. And I will join the community as well, because I want to learn more. I admit that I don't know a lot of things concerning my financial status. So thank you very much. I appreciate very much your time here.
Thank you, Christiana. And I'd love to see you in the community. And I say you're not alone. So anyone who's listening, you're not alone. This is why we created this environment. So Christiana, you're not alone. Anyone listening, you're not alone. And we're here to support you every step of the way. And this is why we donate 80% of our profits of our paid programs to different charities on our website. We help refugee kids go to school, for example. My husband and I are building a school in India. We're paying it forwards. You know, I don't do this because I want to make money from you. I'm actually a stock market trader. I've been doing it for 15 years. And I actually have another business. This is my social enterprise. It's paying it forward. This is my living legacy. And, you know, everything that the finance industry isn't, such as transparency, trust, honesty, integrity, this is what we created.
And also it's time to, you know, say it, that we don't know. I mean, yes, I am successful, but I admit that I don't know, because I started learning very late. So I'm still a baby in that part. You get what I mean? Even though my age is not.
The age is a number. Age is a number. You talked about 60 before. If we're living till 95, 60 means nothing these days. The reality is that we just need to, I always say, put the word yet at the end of it. I'm not educated yet. Because, and the reality is that women make such better investors than men, because we think about it, we do research, we do due diligence, and we actually take time to actually go away and research on before we actually do any sort of investing.
True.
This is the difference. You know, it's like going to your, you know, broke friend trying to get financial advice. It's the same listening to a single friend getting relationship advice, right? You know, so that's why it's, where are you going for your information? Are you going to the bank? Someone's just graduated getting paid, you know, $30,000 a year, and he's being told by his company, these are the products you need to market. That's what he knows. You know, and I talk about being the department store. You want to know what's in the department store? We're the people that tell you what's in the department store, because then you can go, wow, these are all the things I can buy with my money in terms of investing. And I get to understand it. I get to understand my risk. I know what's out there, and I know how to do it.
Yeah,
that's what we teach.
Love it. Thank you very much, Pauline.
Thanks,
and we will meet again for sure.
At the Women Thrive. So what day are you on Women Thrive?
I'm not sure of the date. I think it's the second one, but I'm super excited for that. What an amazing experience it is, the community that we are all in, and getting the chance to do this amazing podcast as well, and connect around the world. You're in Singapore, right?
I live in Singapore at the moment. This is country number 10, living and working. So this is currently where I reside, and, you know, we're online. You know, I have clients from all over the world. I have clients from the US, Europe, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Germany. So yeah, Singapore, Malaysia.
Where are you from? Where are you from?
Originally from the UK, and then I left in 2009, but I also own an Australian passport, which I briefly mentioned, and I spent some time in Australia there as well. And then we've been in Singapore. This is my second time, but I've been here a year now.
Great, love it. So we shall meet again. And if you have any questions, let Pauline know, and I'm sure she will give you the light that you need. Thank you, Pauline.
Thank you, Christiana. Thank you for today.